You know who I am?
Anything you say. Anything you say.
It's official.
What's up, YouTube? This week we got some really crazy stuff to talk about. Nothing really huge in the news except for, there's this story that's been going around all over YouTube for about the past week now about this couple who's getting a divorce. And they have a 6 or 7 year old boy, and a lot of these female psychologists are going and telling the court system for the mother that that's okay to transgender a child. And the only reason why they're doing it is because they're getting paid big money to say it and do it. Anytime that happens, when there's a parent who wants to transgender their child, it's because the psychologist is getting paid big money to say it. And that's what's happening with a lot of female psychologists today, is they're getting paid a lot of money to say it. I happen to have a degree in psychology, and I agree with most of the other psychologists that this is wrong. It's child abuse, plain and simple. I mean, what's wrong with these women? Just ridiculous, It's crazy. Some of the things these women will pull. Anyway, the big news is that this woman is dressing up her child and says she doesn't want a big media outcry over it and everything, but yet she's advertising her business with her child dressed in a dress when it's clearly a boy. And the father is saying, hell no, you ain't doing this to my kid. And then, he's got a video of the boy clearly stating the only reason why he dresses as a girl is because the mother, wants him to. So he does it for her. He doesn't really like it. He also states, the kid also states in the video that he likes girls. He likes being a boy. But his mama tells him he's a girl all the time. Again, this is a form of child abuse. But yet, this woman got a bunch of these female psychologists to come in as supposed expert witnesses. And the court's trying to tell the father that he no longer can call his son a boy. He has to call him a girl. And he can't call him by his proper name, James. He has to call him by a different name, some girl's name. And the father's like, no, you're full of shit. I'm not doing it. And then they tell him if he doesn't do it, he can get arrested. I was like, whatever. That's so fucked up. That's retarded. This woman needs to be knocked in the fucking head. I mean, this is the dumbest shit ever. These female, psychologists doing this so they can get money, and then the women who are doing this to their kids, they don't think it's child abuse when it is. It clearly is. It's child abuse, plain and simple. Anyways, that's the big news that I saw floating around. Tell me what you think about that, because I think it's literally ridiculous. It's insane. These women are nuts. Anyways, moving on. I took the time to watch the Toy Story 4. I've been putting it off for a while, but I finally went ahead and watched it. It's actually not that bad. I didn't think it was like spectacular, but it was alright. Of course, it wasn't nearly as good as the original. And 3 was horrible. I didn't think 3 was all that great anyway. But it was just a slightly tad step up from 3. It wasn't bad. If you've been following the Toy Story series, go ahead and give it a watch. It's not terrible. You'll probably like it. But that's all I got to say on that one. Next thing I want to talk about is I took the liberty of going back and I saw something about there were some cartoons of Superman done in the 1940s, and they were the original cartoons. He didn't have the ability to fly when they first introduced Superman. That's where you get to leave the building in a single bound. He didn't really so much as fly as probably glide is what he did. He didn't really fly. He did a lot of jumping. But I went ahead and watched them just to check them out to see if they were any good. And surprisingly, they weren't half bad. The color in them was really, really good for some reason. They had a lot of vibrant color in them. Compared to a lot of like cartoons from the 60s and stuff. The early Superman cartoons, there were two things that were kind of annoying. The first thing is anytime there was any trouble, automatically Superman would say, "This looks like a job for Superman." He said this every single time. It was pretty annoying. And then he would get changed wherever, just wherever in public. He'd find a little closet or whatever to change into Superman. But the second thing that really annoyed me was Lois Lane was horrible. She was constantly getting into trouble. She didn't listen to anybody. She was like a spoiled little brat. She wanted to constantly get in trouble all the time and nearly get herself killed constantly. Every episode she was nearly getting herself killed. Superman would have to save her every episode. And he would tell her to stay out of trouble, stay put, stay right here. Don't go into the flames, you're going to get burnt. What'd she do? Like an idiot, she'd run into the flames. So he'd have to go get her. So she not only was she getting herself into a big mess, she gets Superman in a big mess for just trying to protect her. Now, the problem I really had was the fact that even though he would fight, even if he's fighting in a city or something, he didn't care about anyone else. The only person he cared about saving was Lois Lane. Like, if everybody else got hurt or whatever, screw him. Oh well, tough shit. He was there to get Lois Lane. That was it. He didn't care for anybody else. Just Lois Lane. Which I found a little bit ridiculous. And at the end of every episode, another annoying thing they had was he'd say, you know, good thing that, you know, you were there to get the scoop or whatever, and she'd say something about Superman saving the day, but where was Clark? You know, da 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 da. You know, there were a couple times that she would, when he was pretending to be Clark Kent, she would literally, you know, fuck him over just to get the story. It was horrible the way she did him constantly in every episode. But anyways, you know, just them couple annoying things. But other than that, the cartoon wasn't too bad for what it was. I just thought that was a little bit ridiculous. Like she was acting like a spoiled brat, and then he'd have to go in and get her out of the mess all the time, but didn't care about anybody else, just her. Next thing I want to talk to you about is, you know, I did watch some of the 60s cartoons as well. I checked out, you know, the very first Green Lantern, the Atom, Aquaman, the Flash, and Hawkman cartoons. It has some really old ones from 1960, the very first time they introduced. A Green Lantern, I don't know much about Green Lantern, but he had some sidekick with him called Cairo or some crap like that. And he looked kind of like this blue elf. I was like, who the fuck is that? I don't know who that is, but he's in it for whatever reason. He's not really much of a sidekick. What was the deal with them all having to have sidekicks back then too? That was, I don't get that. Why they all had to have a sidekick? You know, the Atom was the only one that I saw that didn't have a sidekick. And the Atom, man, they made him look stupider than a box of rocks. Even though he's supposed to be some genius professor, as the Atom, he was saying some stupid shit. I mean, he kind of seemed like a retard. And it just cracked me up, some of the stuff that he was saying. The Flash was okay. Aquaman, I couldn't really get into the Aquaman one. I don't know. It's just, it was strange. It was weird. And the only real bad character he really had was Black Manta anyway. And then the other one I watched, Hawkman. I was really interested in checking out the Hawkman. I wish they'd do an actual movie of him. But the thing that really got me about Hawkman was he had a sidekick, but it was a little hawk. This bird, a hawk. He's called Squiggles or something like that. And he was his companion or whatever, or sidekick. I was like, okay, whatever. You know, and this hawk's going into space with him and everything else. It was crazy. You know, you had a spaceship. Hawkman had a spaceship, which, depending on what version you're going from, I know in one version he's from ancient Egypt, and the other one he's some intergalactic space cop or ranger or whatever. But he's going around with this, which I didn't know he had. Supposedly he's got this gauntlet with like claws on it, and he can do all kinds of things with it, you know, shoot ray guns from it, you know, fucking chemical spills and all kinds of gases, all kinds of weird shit, you know, he could shoot from this thing. It was weird. It was strange. I didn't think he had something like that. I always thought he just had like this Morning Star with him all the time. That's his weapon. But in this he has some like claw with, they called a gauntlet or something. It was strange. really strange. Anyway, you know, they were a little bit strange. The 60s cartoons are a little bit out there. Last thing I want to talk to you about before we get on to our movie reviews is I played the game called Gauntlet Legends. I don't know if you've ever remember the 80s Gauntlet. Gauntlet was a huge game back in the 80s. Millions of fans all over. Love that game. Love that game. It was an awesome game for what it was back then. It was pretty badass. You know, in the 90s they released, or I think it was late 90s or early 2000s, I'm not sure. They released Gauntlet Legends for like PS1, Nintendo 64, whatever. It was a cool game. I loved it. It was awesome. It's kind of like an action RPG, a real-time strategy game, or whatever you want to call it. It had some PG or RPG elements in it, but it also had a lot of you know, mobile action or active or gameplay in it. You had different types of power-ups. You know, that you could use gold on to buy or whatever before you went to your next level or such and such. You pick up these sometimes power-ups and levels as well. What I really liked about it was you had your four main colors, you know, green, blue, yellow, and red, but each color you could change what your character looked like. And they, you know, like, you know, the archers are what was first considered the elf in the 80s, now called the archer, you know, was green, is typically the color of green, but you don't necessarily have to have the archers green. They could be a different color if they wanted to, and of course their look changed. Same thing with the other characters. Each one had a secret character you could become, and I guess there's a cheat to where you could play as the guy, the wizard, the summoner, who's called Summoner, who's telling you the story of what happened, and trying to help you out by, you got to collect these rune stones and then go to hell and kill this demon or whatever, which they leave off for Dark Legacy later on for the PS2 or whatnot. It's a good game. Gauntlet Legends is awesome. I highly recommend it. Check it out. Alright, let's get on to your B-movie review. Alright, you movie holics. Let's talk about your B-movies. This week is Horror Week. We're back to doing horror. So I went with, I guess you would call them classics. I honestly didn't know they had done a remake of this. I saw a movie back in the early 2000s called Willard, about this guy who trains rats to do what they want him to do. He's kind of like the Rat King. And it was a cool ass movie. However, I didn't know that it's actually a remake. Apparently it is. So I went back and I decided to watch the original Willard from 1971. It starred Bruce Davison and Sandra Locke, who used to be Clint Eastwood's wife. And it grossed about, it killed it at the box office for back then. It grossed almost $20 million. So it did really well back then for a horror flick. Anyways, the story is Willard loses his parents. There's this guy, he's kind of a dick. He used to be his father's partner, and he takes over the business and basically now runs it and owns it. Willard lives in this giant house with his mother. However, his mother passes away about halfway through the movie. This guy that Willard works for, that used to be his father's partner in the business, and understand his father's actually the one who created the business. It was actually in his family first, and then he brought this guy along as his partner. Something happened between them. Willard thinks the guy killed his father and took over the business. But supposedly this guy says as a favor to his mother, he's been keeping him there, letting him work there. So with this big house in question, this guy's is trying to get Willard to sell the house to him. He wants the house so he can demolish it and turn the property into a big apartment complex and rent out a bunch of apartments. Willard don't want to do it. So this guy tried to think of a way to try to force Willard to sell the house. While this is going on, Willard has been playing around with these rats he found in the backyard. They have a big nest in the backyard. And Willard starts playing around with them, you know, teaching them tricks and such. He befriends one particular white mouse, which he calls Socrates. And then he befriends another a big rat, way larger than the rest of them, called a black one called Ben. But Ben's a little stubborn. He don't want to listen. He wants to be around Willard all the time, and Willard prefers Socrates being around him all the time. Socrates is his favorite. Ben's like the second child, kind of. Anyway, Willard, like an idiot, he takes these two rats. He starts taking these two rats to work with him, hide them in this closet. Well, someone screams that they see a rat in there, and his boss, or the partner that wants the house, he goes in there and kills Socrates. Or Socrates, whatever. He kills the white rat. Ben's pissed at him, and he's pissed because he thinks he lost his best friend. Willard does. He wants revenge. So he eventually talks to Ben and these other rats, which have multiplied significantly since his mother passed away. He talks to Ben and a bunch of his little fellow rats to go in there and kill this guy, and they do. Well, it sickens the shit out of Willard. He can't believe he did it. And he's like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe you actually went and killed him. Kind of crap. Even though he, that's what he wanted him to do. He turns on Ben and he tells Ben, he says, you gotta leave. Goodbye. I don't want nothing more to do with you or your family. So he leaves him there after he kills that guy. He leaves him there at the office and takes off and goes home. And he puts all the rest of the rats in these cages. And then he goes and drowns them all, kills them all. What's Ben supposed to think? I mean, you know, you're, for some reason, the movie tries to get you to feel for Willard, you know, because Willard don't want anything to do with murder or blah blah blah. And then, you know, Ben shows up and he's like, what the fuck, you know? And Willard then tries to poison Ben and his family by giving them poison food. And then he tries to just beat the shit out of Ben and kill him that way. That don't work, you know. And of course Ben turns on him, you know. It's like, fuck you, you know. You know, and the very last thing he says is, I was good to you, Ben. Why? Blah blah blah. And so, well, why do you think why? You're killing his family, and then fucking you turn and try to kill him, you know? Of course he's gonna kill you, you dumbass. So that's the end of Willard, you know. He gets killed. It was okay. It wasn't too bad. I don't know. They made Willard look like an idiot in this movie. He just came off as a dumbass. And you know, Sandra Locke's part, she was kind of like his girlfriend, you know. She felt bad for him and wanted to help him, kind of crap. But Willard kind of brung everything on himself a lot, you know. He should have stood up and took over his father's company and took it away from that guy, and he didn't do it. He didn't step up. He was a real puss about that. And then he was being weird. He's being really weird. And at the end, he betrays his, you know, one of his best friends, you know, and tries to kill him. So naturally, you know, Ben kills him instead. So he kind of got what he deserved. But anyway, it was alright. It wasn't, I don't think it was nearly as good as the remake. The remake was actually way better. But, you know, for, you know, a 70s horror flick, it wasn't too bad. I say 2 thumbs up. Go check it out. If you like that weird kind of stuff. Now, the next one is the sequel to Willard. Now, they never did a remake of it, and I kind of understand why. It was done in 1972, and it was just basically called Ben. It starred Lee Montgomery, Meredith Baxter, and apparently Michael Jackson sung the main theme song for this movie, which was called Ben, Ben's Song or whatever. It was on his album too at that time, I guess. I'd never heard of it, but anyways, you can hear it at the end of the movie though. He sings it at the end of the movie. And the kid, there's a kid in the movie and he sings it a couple of times in the movie too. But anyway, the sequel is supposed to be about where it picks off where or picks up where Willard left off. All the cops show up and they're looking for these rats. And they're trying to figure out what happened to all the rats because they can't find them. Ben is kind of hidden, and the other rats are hidden in the walls, and they don't know it. They don't find that out till later. But throughout the whole movie, that's literally what the cops are doing. They're trying to find these rats and kill them. There's a little boy, you know, a few houses down from Willard's house, who kind of befriends Ben. Ben kind of shows up and he starts feeding him and talking to him, you know, and he figures out who he is from the papers and everything. He starts calling him Ben and blah blah blah, and they form a supposed friendship. Now this one, there was nothing really weird or scary about it at all. It's just like, you know, a kid, and, you know, he's in his pet is what it reminded me of. It wasn't really a scary movie at all. Anyways, Ben, he's kind of become the leader of his family or of rats or whatever. And he goes and he helps them locate food in like various food markets and houses and stuff. They'll go get food. They raid the places for food, and they leave a big mess. And the cops are trying to find them, figure out where they're hiding, so they can kill them off. Because they know it's Willard's rats that he trained, these highly intelligent rats he trained. So they want to kill them off because they're too smart for their own good. The boy befriends Ben, and Ben kind of shows him that, he's been staying in the sewer, or not sewer drains, but storm drains. There's some tunnels for storm drains underneath the town. He shows him where he's at. He's in it all. Him and the other rats have basically found an area that's been abandoned, that's been long forgotten, down in the storm drains. Now the boy, towards the end of the movie, the boy goes and tries to warn Ben that the police are coming. They're coming to burn them all and flood them after they burn them. And like a dumbass, his older sister goes down there and follows him into the drains. And apparently, anyone who goes down into these drains are going to get all dirty and crap, because every person that goes down there, including the volunteers and the policemen and all them, they all keep coming up out of the drains. They're all got black crap all over them and all over their clothes, so it's not just, the girl, the sister, she falls in in the water and shit, so I understand why she might have some gunk on her, and the boy was crawling around in there, so yeah, he could have some gunk all over him. But other than that, the rest of them, why has everybody got to have gunk all over them when they're not rolling around in that shit? But anyways, the cops going in there, and they have several teams that go in there with a flamethrower and some shotguns. They're shooting them and burning them, and then they have another guy going back behind them with like a water hose who would like shoot them down the drain or whatever, or keep pressing the bodies for or whatever. Anyways, they get to the central area and they pretty much kill pretty much all the rats, and except for Ben. But somehow Ben escapes. He's hurt pretty bad, but he escapes. And guess where he goes? He goes straight to that boy, and that boy, he tells Ben, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you, and I'll help you heal." And so they kind of leave it off for a third one, but they didn't do a third one. And that's the end of the movie. He's going to take care of Ben. It was okay, but it was pretty daggum cheesy. I can tell you that right now. It wasn't scary at all. It was cheesy. It was an interesting story, though. But yeah, it wasn't nearly as good as Willard. So, I mean, if you really want to check out a rat movie as some eating hungry rats or whatever, I mean, go ahead and check it out if that's your thing. But you don't necessarily have to watch this one to get what's going on. But anyways, it was okay. I give it a thumbs up and a thumbs down because it was just but check it out if you want to. Anyways, that's all I got for you this week. If you have any suggestions of some hidden gems I might have missed, please leave them down in the comments below, and I'll get to them as I get to reviewing them as soon as I can. Let me know what you think of this video, if you liked it or not. You know, the whole jazz, subscribe, like, blah blah blah, whatever. Anyways, I'll see you next time. I told you you'd be told the truth, and you've just been told.